Yo guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Newcastle United Career Mode. It's episode number 9 and today we're returning with a brand new season as our second year at St James's Park gets underway on the back of a successful Season 1 where we finished runners-up to Chelsea in the Premier League, reached the last 16 in the Champions League, only to get knocked out by Real Madrid and of course won the FA Cup as well. So for Season 2, I said at the back end of the Season 1 finale we'll get over £100 million for the new season. I'm almost certain of that. What I didn't realise is that we were going to get closer to 200 million than 100 million. Yep, 189 million pounds is our summer transfer budget, which I guess in a way does kind of make sense with the Saudi consortium, Saudi-backed consortium taking over at Newcastle and all the funds they've now got at their disposal. I guess it kind of does make sense because we're now a kind of like a registered Champions League club, if you will. This will be our second year in the top flight. We just won our first major honour since 1955 in the FA Cup. Last year, the only reason we didn't get further in the Champions League is the luck of the draw. We had to face Real Madrid in the last 16. So I guess it does kind of make sense, to be fair. £189 million, and there's no doubt about it. Last year, I was quite conservative, I felt, with my money. You know, obviously I bought in Sandro Tonali for the realism signing in real life. So far, I think Newcastle's only major signing. I'd say I really rate that from Newcastle as well. Despite all the money they've got, not just going throwing money at every single player possible. Yes, of course, they're linked to quite a few players, but they're not just going well over the valuation just to make sure they bring players in. I quite rate how they're doing their business so far, patiently, but looking for the right deals on the right players as well. You know, I bought in Kieran Tierney as well, but for the most part, I kind of kept the squad together for Season 1, mainly for that realism aspect. But for Season 2, I'm definitely going to spend some cash, no doubt about it. And I mean spend some real cash as well. You'll see there's several players that deals up coming the end of the year. Karius has gone to Brentford. Isaac Hayden left permanently to Norwich at Carrow Road as well. Out of loads of players that deals up coming the end of the year, I've talked about long-term futures of Fabian Schär and Dan Burn. Not too sure what kind of long-term futures they have, both in their 30s now at Newcastle. But I did give 2 new contracts out. Even though Wilson is 31, he's my backup striker to Alexander Isak. He knows his role as a backup striker, and he was more than competent last year, scoring a few goals en route to the cup final, which of course we won, and also Joel Linton as well. Joel Linton's turned into such an amazing midfielder under Eddie Howe, so of course the Brazilian, becoming a bit of a fan favourite now, is going to stay. But several players will be leaving. I've added quite a few players to transfer list. Last year we didn't really sell too many players, mainly for the realism and the lack of depth as well. But this year I will be selling quite a few players, and the first player that goes is Jamal Lewis. Of course, came in from Norwich, and unfortunately never really got going at Newcastle. Yep, the disaster saga, if you will, of Jamal Lewis going to Newcastle, that's now come to an end as we sent him to Southampton for a small transfer fee. You did see a bid there for Chris Wood. Last year he was on loan at Nottingham Forest. That deal has actually became permanent in real life for £15 million. Unfortunately, it hasn't in the game. I'll try my absolute best to get him to Nottingham Forest. If I can't, I'll sell him within England if I can. Chris Wood, good striker from New Zealand, of course, but yeah, I'll do my best to get into Nottingham Forest. If I can't, then I'll try and sell him within England. He's definitely not going to Galatasaray. But for the first signing with Newcastle, I decided to go for a target they're heavily linked to this summer, and it is the French winger at Bayer Leverkusen, Moussa Diaby. We had to spend over £86 million plus a sell-on clause to bring him in. But he had a great turnaround season under Xabi Alonso last year at Bayer Leverkusen. He's been heavily linked to Newcastle, but also Aston Villa as well. Right now it's kind of 50-50. Aston Villa appear to be leading the race for Moussa Diaby, but it's very 50-50 right now. The rumours are that if Diaby doesn't go to Newcastle, then instead they'll go for Harvey Barnes, have recently relegated Leicester. But in the end, I opted to go for Diaby as Barnes has already moved on in the save to Villarreal. So yep, Diaby comes in. Whether he goes to Aston Villa or Newcastle, that remains to be seen as things stand in real life. But he is heavily linked to St James's, just like Kieran Tierney had been as well. So I didn't think it was beyond the realms of possibility to bring him in. Diaby signs, and for me, improving this team, I definitely felt we needed a new centre-back for this year to replace the ageing Fabian Schär and Dan Burn on the bench as well. But also Miguel Almiron, bit of a fan favourite. Last year didn't do too well for me. I always talk about it in terms of like a front three or a big trio. You know, a big three at a club, be it basketball or football. There always seems to be like that one player that doesn't quite get the praise that the other two get. Do you know what I mean? I talk about this quite often. In a trio, there's always one player that doesn't quite get the praise. Miguel Almiron to me was that guy last season. Isaac won the assist title, our top scorer. St. Maximin was amazing, scored the win in the cup final. Yeah, Almiron was decent, but not great. I wanted someone to replace Almiron on that right-hand side with that left foot. Moussa Diaby is literally inch perfect for that role. So because we had a monster transfer budget, £189 million, even though we did spend close to 90 million on Diaby, we still had a ton more money to spend as we looked to continue to improve this team. In the end, when I said I wanted a new centre-half, I had quite a few names on the shortlist. I wasn't really sure which one would be the most realistic and also the best for our team as well. So I decided to do something a little bit left field here and go for an Eddie Howe kind of position change with a new signing. Last year, the relegated teams in the Premier League included Fulham. Yes, Fulham were relegated last year in the Premier League in Season 1 in this save. And with the talent they've got, there's no doubt about it, several of their players will be looking to move on back to the top tier or go elsewhere. João Palhinha has been heavily linked elsewhere after 1 year at Craven Cottage, mainly to Manchester United in this summer window. But I thought there's no way to want to stay in the Championship, so how about come to the Champions League? So I said to João Palhinha and Fulham, do you want to come back to the top tier? Marco Silva agrees, a pretty decent fee to be fair, just under 40 million I think it was. And for João Palhinha, I'm going to phase him back, just like Eddie Howe did with Joel Linton, going from striker, centre forward to centre mid. That's what Palhinha is going to be for me, from centre mid to holding mid to centre back. Yep, João Palhinha is 6'3". He's really, really physically imposing. He can leap, he can win aerial duels, he's really strong. Defensively, he's sound, reads the game brilliantly, but also as well, he's comfortable on the ball as a 6. But in this team, while still wear number 6, he'll phase back and play alongside Sven Botman. I wanted a right-footed centre-half, with Botman being a left-footed centre-half. Fabian Schär was phenomenal in the cup final. We all accept that, but I want someone better, I want someone younger, and I'm going to convert João Palhinha to centre-half in this team. Eddie Howe did wonders transforming Joel Linton into a midfielder. Let's see if we can do the same with Palhinha, phasing him back to centre-half. So for the first game of the season, it will be the Community Shield, the glorified friendly, as I call it. The Charity Shield, it's a nice day for the kids, it's a nice day out for the kids, I always think. But it's not too important whether you win or lose. But as I often say, the Community Shield, I feel as though, listen, my team will probably never play in it, but I feel as though for the fans of teams that do play in it, I can imagine, if you lose it, you kind of think, it doesn't really matter. If you win it, you think, it's nice to start off with a trophy. That's what we do. Community Shield, we took on Chelsea. Obviously, they won the league last year, we won the cup, and in the end, we win it by 2-0. Joel Linton bagging a brace in the game and showing exactly why that position change worked out so well for him. Hopefully, it will for Palhinha as well. So, we also made a sale there. Emil Kraft goes to Galatasaray for a small transfer fee. There's quite a lot of deadwood here, in Newcastle. We know that. Last season, there was quite a lot of deadwood here, but I didn't want to sell them all. Yes, we sold the likes of Manquillo, for example. I didn't sell too many, but this year, I do want to start thinning the squad out a little bit. And if we're going to add depth, add quality in depth. Emil Kraft for me, not really going to get, close to Kieran Trippier in this team. I'm starting right back at captain, and I want to bring in a better backup right back anyway. So Kraft goes to Galatasaray, totally fine with that. So heading into the new season though, our first game was Manchester City. I often talk about the first game, you want to win it, especially if you're at home as well. Taking on Guardiola's side here. Well, I said this year, my target for the Premier League with Newcastle is to win it. Last year we were in a title race, and if you remember, we were about 5 games to go. Destiny was technically in our own hands to win the Championship. In the end, after we lost to Chelsea at home, that kind of ended our chance, and the Blues ended up winning the title. This year, I want to win it. Last year, we were in a title race. This year, I want to win it. So if you want to be the best, you need to beat the best. Manchester City have been the most successful team in English football over the past few years, taking them on here at St James. Took the lead early through Alexander Isak. Haaland finds the leveller though, and in stoppage time, I absolutely bottled this. Yeah, my final chance of the game, St Maximin running through one-on-one. And I think the adrenaline just got a bit better, got the better of me there as I went through one-on-one with Ederson, just smashed it straight at the goalkeeper, and in the end it was a pretty simple save. So game finishes 1-1. It's still a decent point, but did you see the crowd reaction there at full time? Booing. Really? Yeah, a draw against Manchester City, we're unlucky to win, and you're booing me on match day 1. Really? Seriously? To me, that's something EA really needs to sort out. How often do you see your team get booed off the pitch when you've got a really credible point against someone? It's like, seriously? Are you serious? Come on now. But still, following the game, I tried to get Chris Wood to Nottingham Forest. I thought, why don't I try and pick up Nico Williams, the ex-Liverpool right back from Nottingham Forest under Steve Cooper. Unfortunately, Cooper just said, no, we don't want Chris Wood back permanently, unfortunately, so I can't get him there for the realism, which means I'll have to sell him somewhere else. And with Nico Williams being at Forest, only the 1 year so far, technically, 2 years so far, technically, at the City Ground. They survived last year. They're still in the Premier League. I decided to keep him there and go after a different backup right back instead. We had one Scandinavian fullback in Kraft. Now let's get another. Yep, Leeds United still in the Championship in this save. Did not get promoted last season. And with all the talent they've got that hasn't moved on, I was quite surprised to see this guy still there. Yes, Rasmus Christensen still at Leeds United, despite the fact they're now in what would be their second season in the Championship. 77 rated, 26 years old, in the prime of his career. He'll want to stay in the Danish national team, and I'm sure he'd want to return to the top flight as well. So for £12 million plus Jamal Lascelles, former club captain, he's off to Ellen Road. He's just not good enough for our Newcastle team with where we are right now in the save. But he certainly is for the Championship, and Christian is certainly good enough for the Premier League as well. I really like Rasmus. You know, he's really, really versatile. He can play right back, slightly further forward, centre half, and also with a 4-star week, but no reason why he couldn't fit in at left back as a backup for Tierney if Matt Target isn't available. So yeah, Lascelles goes to Leeds there as we swap the former club captain to Ellen Road. He'll get a lot more game time there. Being in the final year of his contract here at St James's, wasn't going to play at all, but he goes to Leeds to try and, you know, build them back up to the Premier League, and we get Christensen in for £12 million plus the former captain as well. As for homegrown players, you know, I like them. Well, I wanted to bring in someone else as well, because we're in the Champions League. I said last year, I think we had four, with Freddie Woodman, who obviously re-signed for us, Sean Longstaff, Paul Dummett, and also Elliot Anderson as well. But Anderson being 20 means he wouldn't need to be registered anyway. So I wanted to bring in someone else with the homegrown rulings. And I thought, how about a third choice striker? We're going to let Chris Wood go. So how about a third choice striker? Well, Newcastle lad, born in Newcastle. I have to say, when I watched this guy play for Coventry and Blackburn Rovers, I thought this kid had some real talent. And I thought he was going to become a really good player as the years went by. Since he moved to Southampton now a couple of years ago, moving on from Blackburn Rovers, he just really struggled to adapt to life in the Premier League. Admittedly, he did play in different positions, and last year with the Saints, often coming off the bench, but also as well playing on that left-hand side. And to be fair, last year Southampton obviously finishing rock bottom of the table. They had a really struggling season, so you can't blame him too much for the fact he only got 2 goals in the Premier League last year. But really, Armstrong's only scored a few goals since his 2 years at Southampton. I think I can count as many goals he scored in the Premier League on one hand. Certainly no more than 2. But even so, Armstrong, we're going to bring him back, mainly for the homegrown ruling, of course, as well. And as a third choice striker, he's still reasonably young in his mid-20s. And all I'm going to ask of Adam Armstrong is, look, just get me a goal or 2 in the cup this year when Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak are on the bench or out of the matchday squad. So yeah, Armstrong comes in, third choice striker, just for the squad. And of course, he's homegrown, being a Newcastle lad out of the academy and born in Newcastle as well. So for the second game of the season, we will take on Brighton away, Roberto De Zerbi side away on the south coast here, and we had an amazing start to the game as well. 1-1 draw with Man City in our first home game, but wanted to win our first game on the road. Amazing start. 27 minutes in, Joel Linton gives us a 2-goal lead. Fantastic start to the season for him, worthy that contract extension, no doubt about it. And then he also got the assist for this lovely goal 53 minutes in as well. Alan St Maximin, ASM, how nice was that there with a fake Ramon and the step over and the finish at the near post as well. Don't often show replays, but that was really nice there. Lovely through ball by Joel Linton, and then for the French winger here, watch this, good first touch, gets himself away with his man, fake Ramon and splits 2 defenders and then finishes at the near post. Well, that was so nice there from ASM. So yeah, 3-0 Magpies, points in the bag at this point here. And with 16 minutes to go, I'd slowed the tempo down. I was playing a walking pace here, not playing for counter-attacking football and trying to get as many chances as possible, just playing with slow tempo. Any chance I get, I'll try and take it, and in the end I would as well. Alexander Isak goes through 1-on-1, rounds the goalkeeper and chips it in to the unguarded net. 4-0 Newcastle United. That was dominant. Absolutely brilliant victory there away from home, no doubt about it. My away fans weren't going to boo me off the pitch for that result there. That was an absolutely superb performance there from first whistle to last. So following that, we had a draw for the Champions League group stage, where this year Newcastle have got Leverkusen, PSV and Shakhtar Donetsk in Group C. So Moussa Diaby will return back to the Dubai Arena against Xavi Alonso and his former teammates as well. PSV and Shakhtar as well. Certainly not easy teams to face there, but I do predict us getting through that group. And we should be targeting top spot, which is where we finished last year in our group as well. Kyle Darlow goes for Brighton for a small transfer fee here, as well as our third choice goalkeeper leaves after coming back from his loan spell after Brighton shipped 4 goals. I'm sure he'll be in the matchday squad for the following game, but after we sold Kyle Darlow, I thought, okay, third choice goalkeeper. Nick Pope's obviously our starting goalkeeper. Freddie Woodman last year was our cup goalkeeper and led us to the FA Cup as well. Had a great game between the sticks in the final too. I just need a third choice goalkeeper, and I want a veteran with leadership experience. How about a homegrown goalkeeper as well? And I had 2 to choose between, Tim Krul or Fraser Forster. And in the end, I opted for the Dutch goalkeeper that played over 100 times for Newcastle in the league before his move to Carrow Road back in 2016, I think, 2017, not too sure. But even so, Tim Krul is back at St James's and a homegrown player to add to the 4 or 5 we currently have here at St James's as well. Obviously came to Newcastle at such a young man. He had several loan spells, including at Falkirk and Carlisle United. Then he became a starter with Newcastle, moving on to Carrow Road, and he's back at St James's. And he's just there for the leadership, basically. He's got the leadership trait, which I really, really like. A mentor for the young players, knows the club inside out, and he is back here at St James's as a homegrown, third choice, stand-in veteran goalkeeper. You know I like those for the realism there. So yeah, Tim Krul is back, and he replaces Kyle Darlow as our third choice. And now for sure, no matter what, I know for sure now, we've got enough players that meet the homegrown standings, or registration I should say. But still, for the final game of today's episode, third one in the Premier League and the final one for the window slam shut here, taking on Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp's side. So tough start to the season really, you know, Chelsea in the Community Shield, then Manchester City and Liverpool are 2 home games, and then going away to a good Brighton side as well. Tough start to the season, but I wanted to win our first game at St James's this year against Klopp's side. Took the lead early for Alexander Isak, already 3 goals in as many games to start the season off, and then in the 88th minute, working the ball forward, Bruno Guimaraes finds space down that right-hand side, and just takes the ball the whole way. The space was there. Liverpool playing such a high line. I thought I might as well just go all the way here because no one's going to obstruct my view of Alisson. I might as well go all the way and try and smack it in. Exactly what I did. Guimaraes wraps it up 2-0, and we do win for the first time at St James's this year. So, good start to the season. Back-to-back wins there and a draw at home to Man City. 7 points from 9 after 3 tough fixtures to start the season off. That is what we need if we are to compete for the Premier League title this year. So, as deadline day would come round, we had just over £50 million to spend after Jeff Hendrick's deal to LAFC falls through. Unfortunately, I don't know if he's going to leave Newcastle, you know, for this new season, or whether he'll just stay as a squad player. I don't know, so I might keep him, to be fair. But even so, doesn't look as though now I can sell him to a reasonably realistic destination. But I did decide to make a couple of signings on transfer deadline day. Like I said, Leeds are still in the Championship in this save. With the quality they've got, it's kind of criminal that some of those players are still there and satisfied playing Championship football. So I said to Tyler Adams, come on, you want to come back to the Premier League and you can come play European football for me as well. I offered Big Sam, who's for some reason still there at Leeds, a couple of players, Jeff Hendrick and Chris Wood. Sadly turned them both down, but in the end for Tyler Adams I put in a £25 million deal, flat fee, and as you'll see, whilst initially he stalled it, in the end on the train back to Leeds he decided to accept it. So yeah, Tyler Adams, the deal does get accepted eventually, and for £25 million we pick him up on a 3-year, £55,000 a week deal. Tyler Adams is in as the American joins up here at St James's Park. He'll help with the merchandising, no doubt about it, selling some shirts, and he's here as a squad player here, just to be a backup for Sandro Tonali. I think it'd do really well for Eddie Howe, you know. Tyler Adams, really high energy, hard working player, versatile. I really like this guy. So yeah, Tyler Adams is in to be a backup holding mid for Sandro Tonali. And my final signing on deadline day, well, in the end I decided to get another backup right back for Kieran Trippier. Unsure about how much better Christensen can now get in his mid to late 20s. I know this guy can definitely get better. Such a strange one, really. Of course, when Spurs picked him up, Antonio Conte made it very clear he wasn't going to play him because he didn't want him. Daniel Levy decided to sign him anyway. That was like one of the first times you realised there was going to be a rift this season between the pair of them. And in the end, Jed Spence got loaned out to Stade Rennais. He's back in North London. It'll be interesting to see what Ange does with Jed Spence next year. I hope he gives him a chance. I really, really do. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. With Jed Spence, in the end, he's going to get sold permanently after a brief loan spell at Stade Rennais, and he arrives in St James's for 19.25 million. So to learn under Kieran Trippier, 10 years older, and the club captain, it's a perfect place for Jed Spence to be, to get the mentor leadership from Kieran Trippier, to still be within England. He's going back to the northeast, of course, being from the Middlesbrough. Well, he wasn't from the Middlesbrough Academy. I believe he was from the Fulham Academy, I think, originally. But he did play for Middlesbrough, of course. But yeah, Jed Spence back in the North East regardless. And is that right? Was he a Fulham Academy? I think he was a Fulham Academy graduate. I don't know. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there. But even so, Jed Spence is back in the North East regardless. But this time at St James's. So yeah, Jed Spence comes in and he's definitely the long-term successor for Kieran Trippier if Christensen is not. So Spence is in. He'll need to improve his defensive capabilities, no doubt about it. And he's not very strong either. So that will need to improve for sure. But what I'm going to do is convert Christensen from right back to left back and have him as my backup now, competing with Matt Targett. Like I said, Rasmus is really versatile, 4-star weak foot. He's tall, he's strong, he can play centre half, right back, or now left back as well. So to me, that seems like perfect sense. And in the end, I did sell Chris Wood. I had loads of bids from Girona and Braga and Trabzonspor and all these places where I didn't think he'd go. I couldn't get him to Nottingham Forest, unfortunately. I tried. I waited until the final hours of deadline day, but I couldn't get him to Forest. But this didn't seem too unrealistic. Bournemouth, yeah, Chris Wood goes to Bournemouth. Not too unrealistic there as he goes down to the south coast. But that would do it for transfer deadline day. All our money spent. As you see, we sold the Deadwood as I planned to do. Chris Wood, Carl Darlow, Emil Kraft, Jamal Lewis, all leaving for small transfers, and Jamal Lascelles being swapped out to Leeds as well. But for the star quality coming in, João Palhinha, Tyler Adams and Moussa Diaby in particular, and the backup Christensen with Krul, Armstrong adding to the homegrown standings, and a good long-term successor for Kieran Trippier, the captain as well, in Jed Spence. I've got to say, I'm really happy with the business. Kept it as realistic as I could, but most crucially, really improved this team. A ball-playing defender coming in João Palhinha as we convert him to CB, Diaby coming in on that right-hand side, good successors for the future, especially at right-back, and also hitting the homegrown registration rules as well. I'm happy with how this Newcastle team looks after our second summer transfer window at St James's. But that will end today's episode of the Newcastle United Career Mode, guys. Big thank you, hope you enjoyed it. If you have done, please drop a like. So you'll have a fantastic day, and I will see you for the next episode of the Newcastle United Career Mode very soon.